Welcome, sorcerers, to the Realm in Review 2024, where we'll look back at the year's most memorable moments, take you behind the scenes of our last team meeting of the year, and give you a glimpse as to what's in store for the future of sorcery. So you may want to stick around for the whole video.
And with that, we give you the Erik's Curiosa team. So now we've got two members missing here, but we do have Erik, our founder and creator, Simon, our director of operations, Mike, Sean, Rafa, and Kevin, our incomparable design team. And then we've got Drew, our operations and event manager, and Reuben, our quote-unquote tech guy. Now, Jesse and I aren't here, but we'll be talking with them in a little bit later. So let's jump in and start to explore our topic here. So we've got another retrospective. I can't believe it's already been another year. So what were some of the highlights and favorite moments from this past 2024?
Ooh, it's a tough one. I think this whole year's been a highlight. We've grown very quickly, and I think one of the sort of outstanding moments for us is seeing our team grow. To have more sorcery people, it's been fantastic. Obviously, with the release of Arthurian Legends, that's a great showcase. A sort of event for us in multiple different ways, but really just to see the continued growth of sorcery in our community and all the good work that our game designers do.
Yeah, same over here. It's been a blast to see their first expansion out and to see that we're able to create new things and that people enjoy about the game. To see all the big tournaments, the local game stores, the casual play at home as well, and just people enjoying Sorcery Alpha, but now as well, Arthurian Legends. So that's been great. And like Simon mentioned, the team just growing our capabilities, our potential. It's been also really cool to see more very professional and capable people joining Erik's Curiosa.
Erik, how about you? As our intrepid leader, when you look back on 2024, do you have a favorite sorcery moment or achievement?
Maybe when we got the first samples for the Arthurian Legends packaging material back, because then it had a couple of versions and it wasn't exactly perfect. It was a little bit dark, but you could already tell that it was sort of by leap and bounds be the best looking TCG box, if we're allowed to say that ourselves here. Yeah, so that one. Another one was SorceryCon, which is just awesome to see people play it and enjoy the game so much.
Yeah, that was wild. I think in many ways, 2024 was the year of community for sorcery. We had sorcery events popping up around the globe. Lots of content creators started to champion the game. And I think particularly with referencing SorceryCon, that was a really, humbling and powerful experience. But, I guess this year wasn't all serious. We had a lot of funny moments too. So what were some of the funniest moments from this year from sorcery, either in the community or from behind the scenes?
I've got one that it will stick with me forever, and this one involves Rafa. So I apologize, Rafa, for throwing you under the bus here. So we had during our Arthurian Legends testing, we were doing a lot of sealed play testing, and there's one game that sticks out more than any. And there was this game where I was playing. I had drafted into quite a few knights, which was really exciting. I was testing out the new lance mechanic, a lot of things that I could do on the charge and all this kind of fun stuff. I had this awesome plan in my head, but Rafa had a more awesome plan, and that was Operation Sly Fox, which was whenever I play something with this awesome lance and I'd get him in the right position, removal would happen, and a lance would be dropped. And the Sly Fox would just sneak in, grab this lance, and then just, of course, go stealth. And it's a draft game, so I've got no anti-stealth tech, maybe one card, but
mistakes were made.
Yeah, and it was just at that stage where it was okay, fine. The Sly Fox, at some point, he's going to show up and poke me with a stick. That's all right. Surely he can't do this a second time. So I got another knight kind of a little bit further away, and I was able to got the lance ready and all this kind of stuff like that. I'm pretty sure a Let Stray was involved during Rafa's turn, brought it a little bit closer to the Slight Fox. The dude died. The Slight Fox went and picked up a second lance, and I'm just like, okay, this is crazy. And by the time it was done, I think you had about 3 or 4 lances at the end of that game, and there was like nowhere to hide because that now you have this stealth, a completely lanced up hedgehog, for lack of a better term, running around. I'm 90% sure that's what did me in at the end. I was just so frustrated, but I felt what was really cool about that game was I felt like anything else could have happened in there, but I had this moment where I felt like Farmer McGregor from Peter Rabbit, right? Where it's like, this darn fox, we gotta kill it. It was all about this one thing, and it was like a one base minion that I was just kind of trying to figure out how to kill. Couldn't. It just kept sneaking around. So anyway, I now can't not see Sly Foxes and think how many lances is this Sly Fox going to pick up. So anyway, thanks for that. That was a fantastic game. It'll stick with me in my annals of memories for a long time.
Remember Red Dress Robin.
Red Dress Robin would be good, or even I guess that would be a good one. See that? Yeah, I think I was.
Too busy to play knights.
Yeah, I was so focused on like killing that the obvious solutions were obviously evading me at that point. I think I was tilted. But yeah, that was my big moment.
A little Lance joke there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like Mike, I have a funny sorcery story, but it's also probably my scariest sorcery story as well. So I went to Gen Con this year, and I live in Texas. Gen Con is in Indianapolis, and I thought it was a good idea to drive there, which I normally do. I like to drive. It was about a 15-hour drive, actually. And on my way there, I'm about 3 hours out, which it's at this time, it's about 10 o'clock at night. So it's completely dark outside, and it starts storming really bad. Mind you, this is the scary part of the story, not the funny part. And so it starts storming really bad. My car's like moving around like crazy, and it's lightning off in the distance. And as I get closer and closer to the lightning, a tornado is like right in front of me. The lightning's going off, and mind you, the highway that I'm on, it's like one lane one way, one lane the other direction. And so I really couldn't turn around. My destination is in front of me, and so. Yeah, that was absolutely terrifying. I pulled off the road. Luckily, there was an exit maybe a mile up from me. I can barely see what's going on because it's raining so hard. And like I can say, it looked like a thing out of Stranger Things where the clouds were in front, the lightning was behind it, and there was just a tornado like right in front of me. So I pull off to the road, and a lot of cars follow suit. They just follow me into this gas station, and we all park underneath this awning. We all run inside. And luckily it was a storm shelter. And so we all get into the storm shelter, and the power's going out, flickering on and off. So that was really terrifying. That was the scariest part. So I'll include a scary story from 2024. Luckily I made it. I'm here. Gen Con was great. I will probably say the funniest story, and Chase knows Simon knows what I'm talking about too, but Chase was definitely there. So along with me traveling to Indy, I'm bringing a lot of stuff with me. I'm bringing a lot of like our backdrops, and I had some product, a lot of filming gear because we were recording some content there and everything like that. And so my car is packed with boxes. And so we have to transport from the garage to where our booth is. And if you haven't been to Indy, you definitely should go. 2025, you should definitely go to Gen Con then. But it's a huge hike, like from where the garage is to where we're actually going. It's a very long distance. Well, beforehand, I thought I'd be, as ready as possible. And I went to, I think it was Walmart, like a local indie Walmart I went to, and I bought this cart. So I was like, hey, I'm going to put all these boxes here. I'm going to be efficient and put everything on this cart and roll it there, right? Bought the cart, brought it to my hotel like the night before. I open it up, assuming the wheels are going to be connected to it, but they weren't. I had to like hand put everything. I didn't have any tools, so I had to put the wheels on and everything like that. So everything was hand tightened to the best as I could. And so we're transporting stuff back and forth, going over all these like gravel roads, all this concrete and everything like that. Well, when we get into the convention center, the wheels fall off and there's thousands of people around us, mind you. And I'll put it up on camera somewhere here, but Chase has some footage of me. We're trying to make it work, right? We're trying to lift up this tote that maybe on camera doesn't look that heavy, but it has a lot of stuff in it. And it was very heavy. So I decided to just put the cart, the makeshift cart, we basically destroy it, put it on top of the tote. And I just channel my inner, the character on Rolling Boulder that's just pushing the boulder. I'm just sliding it across. I mean, it felt like it was like 3 football fields long, and I'm just behind it, just pushing it as hard as I could across the floor in between thousands of people. So that was a long-winded story, but that was probably my scariest and my funniest moment from Sorcery in 2024. Yeah.
There is another funny moment, actually.
Okay.
I think, I'm not sure if we're supposed to talk about it, but at Spiel Essen, I was very impressed by Chase's gains. He had been working out, and what we're going to do is we're going to put a photo on the screen, and you guys can see for yourselves. It's an unfortunate perspective photograph of an iPhone, but it's hilarious, and I think we all choked with laughter after seeing that. So a little treat for the community.
We are supposed to get a nice group photo, and because of the way the camera warps me, it like takes all the focus of the photo to me. Oh no.
What lesson did you learn there, Chase?
The lesson is don't sit in the front of the tables for photos.
One thing we do now, though, is whenever we take a group photograph, we make sure Chase is at the front.
Oh, nice. I had a really cool moment happen just a few weeks ago. Down in my local game store, I'd say I'm a filthy competitive player at heart. So of course I'm on Archimago, and I get to the finals, and the other player is playing Archimago as well. So we had this epic standoff because we both just went all out and guns blazing. We both had an orb out, the 5 mana one that copies spells. So we've got 2 orbs sitting in the middle. Both avatars are sitting in the middle as well, and we're just like slinging nuclear bombs back and forth the whole time. So it was like, blink, draw 3, lightning bolt for 9, crater eyes for 1 million, and then heal back to 4. And the game was just amazing. It went on and on and on, and I think we counted up, and I had healed like about 55 or something by the end of the game, and the damage dealt was just insane. It was really, really fun. It was the proper like wizard power fantasy.
That's awesome.
As only Sorcery can deliver, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there are so many funny stories too, now that I think about it. But there's also a lot of hard times too, right? We've grown so much as a team, but there have definitely been some times throughout the year that have tested things. I think the hardest part for me was Gen Con. It was like kind of like the best and the worst all together. And so a little bit of behind the scenes thing. Our team's grown a lot, as you guys can tell just by who's on screen right now. But Gen Con, that season, the way you prepare for it, like that information, we've already committed for next year. And there's like a whole process you go as far as like designing your booth and making your materials. And we had planned to have a presence last year, but not a booth. We hadn't been approved. And we got word that we were going to be able to do a booth about 4 weeks out or so. And so we had to do all the Gen Con prep for like a whole year in like that window, get things made and delivered. And I think, we're so fortunate here. And I just think of like some of the new members on the team, like Drew, but also Kevin. Kevin coming in as a designer. And we're like, oh my gosh, Gen Con's here. Like, we have to get all this stuff together. Sean's amazing with the graphic design, but like there's only so many hours in a day. And Kevin's like, oh, like I can help with some of this stuff. And it was like, okay, like, yes, please. But it was, I think I'm really thankful for the additions to the team and helping us kind of get through that moment so we could pull together. And then Gen Con was amazing. And like Drew having you there as well, being able to help with the media and help, carry some of it and set up the booth and, push boxes through the convention hall. I mean, that was just wild. So I think, that was kind of one of the harder moments of the year. And then the community was awesome there. And it just made it this like wild experience where, it's just like a really like, it's an overused cliche, but like an emotional roller coaster of just like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? And then like, oh my gosh, it's working. And then like the community is just so receptive and kind and people loving sorcery. So I think that stands out as kind of like one of those challenges.
We didn't know what we were doing. Like we had no like, what does this mean? Where does electricity come from? Things like that. We just had to learn everything as we're going. One thing which is quite amusing, we'll put this on the screen, is the rendering that Kevin did with the people who are actually manning the booth as well. So yeah,
Yeah, that was a funny moment too.
You guys didn't end up taking the photographs. You were supposed to do the pose, right?
Oh, we're supposed to recreate it as well, weren't we? Yeah, sorry
I
about
don't know
that.
there was time for that. We were. It was a crazy setup, and then we got swamped once it opened. Other challenges for this year that we overcame.
Yeah.
Or faced.
Yeah, I can speak on this because something happened quite recently, which is always a disappointment. When you grow a business, there's always things that happen, which sometimes you have to make hard decisions. Sometimes things happen, you have to sort of like work to counter those challenges. But we were very surprised when the binders that we put together for our community and sold in the sorcery shop didn't meet our specifications. It was tremendously disappointing. It's a real sort of kick in the teeth because they've taken a while to get into people's hands, and we're very cognizant of the fact that it took so long. So to see that fail, that for us was disappointing. We're taking some measures to work with our production partner to make sure we can rectify that. But our very sincere apologies to our community for that. It's since we realised, despite our best efforts with sampling and looking at all of the stock that we had, unfortunately things just weren't consistent. So that was disappointing for us. But you roll with the punches, and it's all part of it. With the highs you take the lows. So as we navigate this, we move forward. And I remember, well, I shouldn't really say this, but I was playing a game of a future sorcery set with Chase at the weekend, and I thought to myself after I had beaten him how
The
amazing
important
this
part.
was, and there's so much for people to look forward to that that immediately kind of made me feel a lot better about things. But again, folks, really sorry about that. It's not our intention to be amateurish or anything like that, but that certainly fell below the standards that we feel we want to put in front of customers.
I feel like that's the sort of thing where next year's retrospective, hopefully, in the context of like how much back and forth the binders had and how much like attention to detail and care went into it, that'll be like a thing we can laugh about in the future. But maybe we need a little bit more time.
A little more time, yeah. Let's take a while.
So, with these challenges that we were able to overcome a lot this year, and a lot of that was with inspiration from the community directly. So I guess for the team, I'd wonder, what are some of your favorite community moments from 2024? Maybe things that inspired you, or
Yeah, I think I don't want to shout out one particular moment, but I just love the community and collaboration that we get going on in the Curiosa.io channel in our Discord. It's the place people go to report issues or bring ideas to our attention for our deck builder for sorcery. And I mean, I've worked on a lot of software products, and I've never felt this connected to the community and the people that actually use your product. That's an incredibly special thing for myself. I think any other software engineers out there watching this will really resonate with that, of how special it is to have the people who are using your software really buy into it and really engage with it, help you out with testing, be so generous with their time, reporting bugs, coming up with ideas. It's a really special collaborative process, and I really love that. I think a lot of the ideas that pop up there are really great, and we take them all seriously. So yeah, I just can't stress how cool that is. I think it's because Curiosa.io did start as a community project. It's managed to retain a bit of that magic.
Yeah, I had a really cool moment. I thought was not being able to be there in person, but watching all of the coverage of SorceryCon. And for me in particular, seeing people showing up and cosplaying characters from the game, which like with Sorcery's been in stores for like a year, and we're already hosting or partnering with people to run these big events, and people are showing up and putting together costumes and organizing groups to all show up in identical costumes to replicate in-game mechanics, things like that, which is just kind of wild, and really cool to see that people are going to these events and able to express their passion for sorcery in different ways, not just by playing the game, but other creative ways too.
I think that's, I mean, for me, the whole thing this year was the events and seeing the community come out for sorcery. I mean, we had like a prodigious amount of events with, from around the world, the Australian New Zealand Championship, March of the Mortals, what was it, the Avatars of Idrisil, our Singapore events, the Courtesan Cup, Sorcery Con. It was just like one after another. And there was like, each one had their own spin and flavor, but they all had that like consistent thread of how the community interacted with each other, which I felt like was so sorcery. And getting for us to be able to attend those events, different team members in different parts of the world being able to, participate often, that really was an amazing experience. Because I think it's safe to say that like, we're all part of Erik's Curiosa, but we're also fans of the project. And I guess maybe Drew, it's maybe kind of wild to think about it. It's not so long ago that, you were deep in March of the Mortals territory. And now what's it like maybe for you, now being on this side of things, like, having your experience at Gen Con, going from being a fan to now, and doing the Arthurian Legends launch stream to now being part of the team?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. And honestly, looking back at it from not being a part of the team, I can honestly say that what goes on behind the scenes is exactly what I would want to happen as a fan. Like seeing everyone working as individuals on their own projects so hard, and everyone has they bring so much to the table. And then the way that everyone works together on projects and has a goal, and it's so cool to see, from A to Z how you guys do things. And I say you guys as like from the perspective of not being on the team, because I was really hoping that, that all this love and attention and care goes into every element of the game. And now being on this side, it really is like that. The attention to detail cannot be expressed enough. It's truly amazing to see.
And, I think we mentioned before, Kevin, another key new addition to this team was you. And I think you came at a time when, your background is in design, right? But you came and you have so many other skills too. That was like so helpful, especially with us. And you just hit the ground running. Before joining Erik's Curiosa, you worked in video game design. Now diving into TCG design, have you find you've had to change the way you approach design, or are those principles like pretty universal?
I do think that a lot of design principles are quite universal and transferable. Like, there could be a video game that shares a lot more in common with sorcery than two TCGs might have in common with each other. That being said, I think the biggest change when I moved into working in sorcery is, and this really reflects what Drew just said, is the detail and consideration that is poured into like each card design for sorcery. Like, we spend so much time on like individual card. We're talking about one card for like hours, and it's kind of like insane. And I think this is due to the kind of conflux of theme and mechanics that is, I think, the heart of sorcery, right? And really trying to make sure the card is good from that narrative, aesthetic, but also the mechanical standpoint. It's been a real joy to like kind of flex and stretch those design muscles.
Oh, we're super happy to have both of you on the team. We're growing strong, and so it's just I think you judge a company by the company it keeps, and we're certainly in good company here. And then I guess Reuben, well, not someone new to the team, you're often working on things that maybe people don't see on the surface level as much, right? The average user is going on to the deck builder and just maybe taking for granted that it's running so amazingly well, or that we've got this awesome website, or all these other tech components. What are you most proud of this year, and what maybe you're looking forward to for next year?
I think I think in general, what I'm most proud of is just keeping things from falling apart in terms of our technology, keeping the plates spinning. It's a lot of different things. I think um, yeah, just keeping Curiosa running smoothly, keeping the dust system running and operating and in sync, and getting test cards through the playtesting cycles for future sets coming out. It's pretty. It's a lot to manage. And yeah, just recently we've had the over the 30,000th deck created on Curiosa, and in those decks we've got I think over 1.2 million cards now, which is pretty wild for a game of our age. So I love that. But yeah, next year, I think what I'm most looking forward to is having the tech team grow. So we've got our second developer joining the team in January, and then yeah, the tech team's technically doubling in size. So that'll be really really exciting, and that'll unlock a lot of stuff that we've got in the pipeline. Some secret projects, some exciting things, but just some great quality of life things that people have been talking about and wanting for a while. Things like a collection management overhaul to help people with their trading and completing their collections, making that a lot easier. A deck list history system, so you can easily see recent updates to any decks you're looking at on Curiosa, and things like a feed of the recent tournament decks that come out of the Play Network, so you can see the top 8s, top 16s of the big tournaments and keep on top of the pulse of the meta.
Fantastic. And I think Simon talked a bit about crushing me in sorcery, but people know I play some games with Ira as well from time to time. He's also local to me. But Reuben, you're actually my nemesis, so I look forward to getting some more games in this year. Watch out. You've been called out on stream here, but but now actually I kind of
we need to get Reuben into the States, and you guys can have a game. That'll be a future video.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Comment down below if you like to see that happen.
But actually, it's kind of funny. I want to go back to something Kevin was saying. It's sort of ironic. He was mentioning just how much time goes into designing cards and how much, a labor of love that is. So I think what everybody loves when you're a designer is to be asked to randomly design something on the spot. So let's see if we can put some people in the hot seat here. So pitching it widely to the design team, and I've sort of planned out some people I want to incorporate here. Can we design a card that represents the Sorcery 2024 year, like if it was a card? So I picked out some questions here. So Mike, as our senior game designer, you bring a wealth of experience to everything you do, and people don't even understand the scope of what you do at Sorcery. Like you're so key with the pipeline and production as well. So I'm gonna hit you with the hardest part. Yeah, I know you love surprises, right? When you're the logistics pipeline manager person, that's what they love, unexpected things. So if I was going to ask the design team to come up with a card that represented the Sorcery 2024 year, what might be an initial theme and or concept that they could use for a card in this manner?
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Good question.
Something involving that store. Maybe.
That's where I feel like I'm at the moment. I feel like one of the vibes that I'm getting from just what we were all just discussing, one of the biggest, I guess, accomplishments of this year have been around these events, going to all these events, right? So like there's so many connections with people that we've been making, connections with the community. Just to emphasize a point that the guys were making earlier, I just never underestimate how much petrol you guys put in the tank when it comes to giving us feedback and coming to these events and enjoying yourselves, cosplaying, all that kind of stuff like that. That keeps the design team moving infinitely. So thank you so much for that. But like with those kind of events and those kind of things are kind of maybe the area that I would maybe pivot us towards. So I don't know if that means like a concept of like a we've just come out of Arthurian Legends world where tournaments are regular, right? You've got the big feasts, you've got the tournaments, you've got the boasting. Something that could kind of lean into that, or something that could kind of lean into like an arcane council of sorcerers, maybe. We've got thousands of sorcerers out there that kind of meet in these gathering places. So I don't know. I'll put that pitch out there and see what y'all can create out of that potentially. Or
Now, here's the hard part where maybe as a non-designer here, I'm hoping I'm going to throw some questions out there in the right order for how you might make a card. But maybe having said that, Rafa, like what do you think might be some abilities that a card like that might be able to have?
Yeah, so that definitely sounds a little bit more like maybe it would be like a magic in terms of the card type. So you're
Bit more
trying
like
to have a
a
little bit of the story.
singular event.
Yeah, exactly. Because that sounds like an event, like an assemble of an assembling of sorcerers, or some sort of like tournament or duel. So I think that would be probably the card type that I'd be leaning towards. And in terms of the ability itself, it could be something that's synergized with like spellcaster minions or even spellcasters in general. A card we have in the game, for example, is occult ritual. So naturally, I would try to like create something that maybe does something similar, but has its own kind of unique aspect to it. So it could, and we also use lessons learned, right? So for example, occult ritual was something that used just spellcasters at the same location, and that kind of created this sort of slightly like poor gameplay pattern where we're trying to just assemble like stack a bunch of minions all in the same location. So I'd probably let it be a bit more, a bit easier to enable, maybe allow it to be like adjacent spellcasters, and with a different payoff that is mana. So maybe something that is that sells it that like you're building towards something greater, because like the assemble of sorcerers. Maybe someone on the design team could lend me a hand here.
It could be an aura, actually. Like if it's a event that lasts, say, 3 turns, then like an aura that plays to the realm, right? It feels like, okay, you have to go there, right? Like the Gen Con aura, it sits there for 3 turns and everybody has to quickly run towards it.
Do you like the Arthurian Legends quest style thing where you chuck it down and you want to gather up as much stuff as you can?
Everybody wants to travel to it.
Yeah.
maybe you add on.
You can even make it in a way that both enemies and allies can kind of like go there to contest that event.
One of my favorite cards designed in AL is the 13 Treasures of Britain, and so maybe it's one of those situations where it moves around, right? And it dispels after those. How many events did we have last year? Like 7? Did we dispel?
7.
Yeah.
There were 7 off the top of my head, but yeah.
So it dispels after the 7th one or 8th one or 10th. I don't know, but it might be one of those things where. But what I like about that card in particular is that it's kind of one of those moments where you set everything aside just temporarily, like all this fighting, and you go and you grab your treasures, right? So if it could invoke that vibe, that'd be pretty awesome.
So I have a thought idea here, but I think I'll save it to the very end. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, then how would we so when you're coming up with a card like this, then I guess what would you do for like cost and maybe element? How do you narrow that down? Kevin, maybe you could champion that a little bit.
So I think the elements would be the easy one. Having it be like a joyous festival, we already have similar theme in Arthurian Legends with the. Is it like what's it called? The festival site?
Annual fair.
Annual fair, right? So I think it has to be 4 element, right? It celebrates, the whole community, everybody together. So I think one of each element makes a lot of sense. Well, we don't know what the effect is, so it's hard to give it a fair cost.
But do you generally prefer do you like to have your a high-costed, really huge effect thing, or do you prefer to have something more, maybe a little utilitarian, like you can get it out
I'm
there?
not really on the production logistics sides, but I do know from, in the past when I ran like things at PAX, it's these things are expensive, so I imagine this would maybe warrant a similar mana cost. So yeah, I think make it like a boomy 6 mana plus aura that's one of each threshold. I would start from there.
And Sean, you already know what I'm going to ask you, because you've somewhat been known for being someone who comes up with type lines very very well. So I'm sure you're already thinking about that. So what would any ideas for a suggested type line? Do you have a little flavor here for a card?
So one of the go-tos is to try and find kind of alliterative stuff. And so I have a couple of ideas that I've written down here on the theme, which is Sorcerer's Summit, so like a unique aura of Sorcerer's Summit, or Arcane Assembly, or Conjurer's Convention, or maybe Conclave, because I quite like Conclave. It's a good grouping word.
All right, Eric. I mean, that was a card. And how much time does that meet approval?
Okay. Well, what I thought about was a very similar name to yours, which was Surge of Sorcerers.
Yeah.
With the gameplay effect being until your next turn, all mortals in game are sorcerers.
That would be amazing.
I plan to be something like elite magic of upcoming community. Yeah.
Eric, how many likes does this video have to get for that to be a thing?
and that should sum up.
Elite magic of apprentice propagation.
Oh my gosh!
See, this is why he's so good at it.
It's basically like this every day, nonstop. Just sit there doing. So, but wow, I mean, I think it's hard to put into words how amazing it is getting to work with the team here, but also just how thankful we are for the community for their support. Right, we get to see people come up with these amazing ideas, and like just think of like the hundreds of sorcery cards that have been generated by the design team and then put into production. So much work that goes on here, but it's all for naught, right? If people aren't there really enjoying it and seeing the vision that Eric's putting out and connecting with that. So looking back over this last year, the idea that the community that folks stepped up and are celebrating sorcery and it's really resonating with them, that is amazing. And something I think that's going to definitely nourish me going into the next year. And I think I can speak for the team, is something that's a driving force and like propelling us forward. So as we start to wrap things up here, I think actually, Drew, we got another meeting coming up soon, so we gotta jump out to that. But thanks to everyone at the Stand Up for taking some time to talk through this today for our retrospective, and you'll be hearing more from all of us not too long from now. Well, that was another great team meeting. Drew, it's always fun when we get the whole team together. So as our new operations and events manager, you've got a lot of firsthand experience running awesome events yourself. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, earlier this year, I ran an event called March of the Mortals, which was a 64-player event. And, to be honest with you, I was really trying to make an awesome, high caliber event so that Erik's Curiosa would notice me, to be honest. We had such a growing community in Texas, and I personally love the game. And I thought, hey, I have a media production background. I was like, let me get all my friends together that are in this community, try to pull in a bunch of people throughout the country and throughout the world that want to, come overseas and make a really high caliber stream. And so, long story short, we did that. That was very successful. And so, I kind of took what SorceryCon Seattle did about a month prior. They really set the tone for events all throughout this year. There was SorceryCon Seattle, then March of the Mortals, the Courtesan Cup, Gen Con, Singapore, Australia. Jesse had some amazing events over there. SorceryCon Vegas, really capped off this year. There was just so many to be exact. We had over 2,500 events that were run through the Play Network, big and small. And so it's so cool to see firsthand the love that everyone has for the game. It's like playing the game itself is amazing, but then you get that experience of having all these like-minded people that just want to share the game. It's so fun. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's been a crazy year for the community and so much support, and you coming on here to help now support the team as well. So tell us a little about what you do at Erik's Curiosa.
Sure. Yeah, so I really like to think of it in kind of like 3 different pillars that are my focuses. One is the media side of things and working with you, Chase, kind of building out that strategy and what the media will look like for Sorcery going forward. So that's making content, editing content, and everything in between there. The other side of it is like store onboarding, getting the stores out there that maybe have heard of Sorcery, never heard of Sorcery, but trying to get them onto the Play Network. Like I mentioned, we have 2,500 events. We want to grow that, right? We want that number to get bigger and bigger so more people are getting to experience Sorcery. And then the third thing, a nice little segue, is events. Like, I'm Jesse and I really work hand in hand in terms of like the overall structure of events and what that looks like. And I'm not going to give away too much. I'll kind of let Jesse talk about that because I'm about to meet with him shortly. But yeah, those are kind of my 3 areas that I'm working on for Erik's Curiosa.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, you know what? I won't hold you from a meeting for Jesse any longer. In fact, I got to check what Simon's getting into, and maybe we'll circle back with him in a little bit.
Yeah, sounds great. I will see you then.
All right, see you in a few.
Hey, Jesse, how's it going?
Good, Drew. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to us today. We just finished the team meeting not too long ago, where you were definitely missed. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to share with the community a little bit about your role at Erik's Curiosa, some of the amazing things that you've worked on this year, and maybe even touch on some of the exciting things we can look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to, Drew. It's been a really big year. Lots of great things have happened and lots more great things to come in 2025. So happy to talk about both of those things.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first up, you and I share a very similar path to joining Erik's Curiosa. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you became part of the team, and a little bit about what your role entails?
Yeah, sure. So before I joined the team, some people would know that I had a YouTube channel called The Winning Agenda, and I was making content for about sorcery, and I was also running some events at our local game store, Plenty of Games. So those two things kind of meant that I was intersecting with the Sorcery team in a few different ways, both through the content I was making and also through the creation of our events and the running of our events, and talking to them about the Sorcery Play Network and how it's functioning, and what sort of improvements I thought that we could see. And I was also involved in the pre-alpha playtesting, and very keen to give my thoughts on the game side of things as well. So I had lots of different interactions, I suppose, with lots of different members of the team. And in the end, Chase and Simon got in touch because they were looking to have some more in-store gameplay footage and some more input from people with a store background into the design of Sorcery's processes. So both of those things meant that I was a good fit to give them some of that advice and give them a bit of that help. So I've had the honor and privilege of being able to do that throughout this year, and it's just been really fantastic to be part of the team.
That is so cool. Well, and I know that you're really involved at your local game store, and incredibly passionate about building the sorcery scene there. So I guess my question would be, what drives that passion? What is it about sorcery that gets you excited to grow and connect with your local community?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the story of our local game store and our local community kind of plays into it a little bit, because Plenty of Games, which I'm a part of, it's a sort of collective game store in a way. There are 4 main owners, and then there's a group of 20 or 30 other people who are kind of involved in the company behind it, in a very small way. But it's designed that way so that those extra people are recognized for being passionate members of the community and are actually sort of part of the back end of the organization. And what that then has led to is a really broad-based community of people who are passionate about different games, who feed into the store and feed into the store's decision-making about how it runs events for all those different games. So a few of my friends are involved, who I've been friends with for quite a long time in the store in different capacities. And I actually just sort of got involved to help them out because I really loved the idea of the project. At that point, Sorcery wasn't even in the picture. I'd been playing other games with them for a long time, Magic, Flesh and Blood, Netrunner, all the other games that I've featured on the Winning Agenda content for. And I just really wanted to support them with this project of this store because I thought it was a cool idea. And then Sorcery came along, and I had this opportunity of a game that I was now passionate about to actually say, hey, team, I can kind of feed into the store this new game and be the one within our group who's sort of championing that and running it if you're happy to give me the space to do it. And thankfully they were. The rest of the team got on board with the idea of being an innkeeper in the Kickstarter, got that product, and then they've been supremely supportive of me in getting beta and Arthurian Legends and stocking that through the store, but also giving me the space to run fortnightly locals, as well as a couple of championship events this year. And we had very much the whole team at Plenty of Games on board with supporting me with those bigger events, both promoting them and then running them on the day. And that's been just a real pleasure. So it's very much a community, I guess, that I've been involved in for a while at the store. And Sorcery was something that I became passionate about. And then I was fortunate enough that that community was willing to get behind it and really support it.
Wow. So in addition to all the big events that are actually going on there, have you seen a lot of growth in the event participation over the year? And
yeah, absolutely.
If you have, aside from the game obviously just being awesome, what do you think has contributed to that growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's sort of been a few different phases throughout the year of Sorcery, and I think all games follow this when you've got the initial release, and then you've got people exploring the metagame, and then you've got heading into the new set, people just kind of waiting, and then the new set hits, and there's this big buzz, and then now we're in that exploration phase again. So I've really watched our local community follow that arc, which has been really fun and exciting, and we have tried to punctuate that at the different stages of that process with some championships. And I think one of the things that was a big focus for me with my experience with other games is giving players opportunities throughout that sort of set life cycle after the exploration phase to express themselves and kind of show off these decks that they've been exploring and test their mettle against the other members of the community. And that worked really well. And so we saw Early on, we had a great amount of buzz. Alpha was really exciting, and we had this Kickstarter Alpha product, and people were really keen to come along and play sealed and build their collections, which was awesome. We had anytime anyone opened a foil unique or a core or a philosopher's stone, it was like really, really cool, and there was that buzz around that. And then we transitioned into sort of constructed play for a little while. Mostly after beta came out, though, so people had enough cards to build constructed decks. We sort of did alpha drafts and seals for a while. And then once beta came out, we did a bit more limited, which was also really awesome. I think anyone who's played alpha or beta, sealed or draft can safely attest to the fact that it was a really fun and engaging format, and it really showed off a lot of the fundamentals of what Sorcery is all about. And then as we transitioned into the constructed side of things, we had our first championship in April this year. It was about 5 months after beta landed. And that gave the local community that opportunity to develop their decks throughout that 5-month period, acquire the cards they need, come along to the fortnightly locals and test things out. And then they had this really big thing to build towards. And that was a great event. We had about 50 people, and Erik came along, and we had Lindsay Crummet come across from New Zealand as well. And so, yeah, that was just like this really big early event that we had for our, relatively small but growing local community to all turn out. And we had quite a few people travel as well, both from New Zealand and interstate in Australia, which was great to see. And then throughout the rest of this year, as we built towards Arthurian Legends and just kind of kept running those fortnightly locals, it's been fantastic to watch a lot of new faces come into the community and come and attend regularly. We've got people who travel every fortnight from outside of Melbourne, the city where we are, on regional trains and buses to come and play from regional areas, over an hour on the train each fortnight to come and play, which is really awesome each way. And then we've also got some new people who've joined and some of those stalwarts who turn up every fortnight. So it's just been great to watch that community growing.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for people out there that are interested in organizing events and building their own sorcery community?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, that idea of tapping into that life cycle of thinking about what the players are getting out of the game. I think it's really important at the moment. We've got so many games and video games and opportunities for people to spend their time. And we're coming out of COVID, and the idea of getting out of the house and going somewhere to do something is a little bit kind of harder than it perhaps was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Or it's at least a little bit more infrequent for people. There's more that we do from home now. So I think stores really need to think about what it is that they're offering to players and what it is that players want, and making sure that you're facilitating and supporting that. So that's why I guess I was thinking about that, the life cycle of a set and a player's engagement with the game. And of course, early on in a set's release cycle, it's about acquiring those new cards you want, perhaps finishing a collection, perhaps just getting some of the key cards in your hands. So doing some more limited play can be really helpful because you're opening packs and you're getting to keep some new cards. And you might not have all the cards you want for your constructed decks yet. And then once you're a couple of months in, facilitating players. I know once I did quite a few limited events, and then we got to the point where our local players were saying, we want to play constructed, give us a chance to come and test our decks. So we did, we transitioned our fortnightly events back to constructed, and people have loved that as well. But it's really just about listening to the community, but also thinking about what people are going to be wanting at that point in the life cycle. And then I think the other big piece of advice I'd give, and this is something we'll touch on a little bit more with our 2025 plans, is give people something to build towards. So, have a championship, have something on the horizon that people can look forward to, so that their engagement with the game each fortnight or each week or each month, however often you run your regular tournaments, they're building towards something, and there's sort of a goal on the horizon.
Yeah, no, those are really good points. And if we kind of shifted gears a little bit for a larger event, Spiel Essen, for example, you were fortunate enough to represent Erik's Curiosa there this year. Can you share a little bit about what your role was there and what it was like seeing, Sorcery being part of one of the largest gaming conventions in the world?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience for me, Drew. It was, I'm sure you had the same thing at Gen Con this year. Seeing so many people who are passionate about this game that we work on and support and talk about, all turning out in the flesh and just chatting and feeling the buzz of that human interaction. It's really something special. And what we had at Spiel Essen was not just a convention where people were learning the game through the beta precons, but also, of course, the launch of Arthurian Legends. And we had 3 amazing artists, Vincent, Severin, and Drew, who were there. And so you had the buzz on the artistic side. You had all these fans turning out to say, oh my gosh, Drew Tucker, Severin Pignot, Vincent Pompetti, I've really wanted to meet you, and I can't believe I get to kind of see you in person. And then you had the game side where people were cracking their first Arthurian Legends booster boxes, and they had just that pure joy and excitement of Christmas morning, opening this new thing that they've been waiting for. And then you had new players who were playing beta precons who just wandered by the booth or heard that we were going to be there and brought a friend or a partner or a family member along to try it out. And I still remember, some of the stories of the games that I was teaching people with, and all the moments that make people go, aha, or make people go, oh, I can do this cool thing. That's so awesome. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe you beat me that way. That's like, next time I'm going to watch out for that. And these are people playing their first game ever. So it showed off everything that's amazing about Sorcery. Art, the amazing product, people picking up the Arthurian Legends booster box going, oh my gosh, this thing is so beautiful. And then the new players diving into the gameplay and going, wow, this is so deep. And, you had people from all other trading card games who were there who, had a primary trading card game they were there for and maybe just came to check out Sorcery. And they were like, oh, Sorcery does all these things that the other game I play doesn't do. And I really like that. Or it does these things that the other game does in a different way. And I really love that. And that was really cool. So we had that aspect at the convention, but then somewhat crazily, and Simon might touch on this in his chat, or certainly has behind the scenes with us, that doing all of that alongside running launch events for players to come and play Arthurian Legends down at the White Rabbit game store, just a short distance away from the Essen Convention Centre. That was a lot for our small team who were all away from home or traveling to do. But we wanted to give players this opportunity to both come to the convention and see us at the booth, but then have a play experience with the new set and to really launch it with a bang. So it was difficult and it was hard, but in some ways I'm really glad that we did it in many ways, because again, we got that different feeling. These were all people who were, most of them, a bit more invested in the sorcery community. Many had traveled from all over Europe, some from as far afield as Australia. One of my local players, Davida, happened to be in Paris for a conference the week before, so he extended his trip and came along to Essen to play as well. So we had people from all over who just love the game, who were there to experience Arthurian Legends for the first time together in a play setting. And the buzz in that room was just really something special. That was that Christmas morning feeling of people opening the boxes that I described from the Essen event, but then also this extra kind of extended over a few hours of people exploring the cards and really looking at them in detail and playing them and feeling that that amazement and wonderment at what was in front of them. And that was irreplaceable. Like, I've never experienced anything like it, having been a bit involved in the Arthurian Legends playtesting quite a long time before, and then seeing these cards in players' hands. I can only imagine. And I spoke a little bit to Erik and Sean, who are obviously more involved in the design and development side of Arthurian Legends, what that buzz and that feeling was like. And it was really special watching them experience it as well that weekend.
That's so awesome. That's really exciting. The last question I'll ask you is something that I'm sure the community is really excited to hear from you, is organized play. Can you give us a little insight into what's in store for organized play in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited, Drew, about 2025, because I think one thing that the team at Erik's Curiosa wants to do next year is facilitate more players playing the game and playing it against more opponents or more friends. And what we want to do is actually support that through an organized play program that uplifts and upholds all the things that we love about sorcery, an inclusive play environment, one that's focused on fun and storytelling and exploration of the cards, but does give players and stores the support to be able to put on these events, have some awesome prizes, and have that thing on the horizon to look forward to and build towards that I was talking about in terms of that community building side of things. So to that end, we are going to have some store championship support. We're going to have an application process for stores who have been active in running sorcery events and those who want to dive in to apply to run a store championship. And we're going to be providing some prize support, some very exciting prize support for those store championships, which we'll talk more about later. And then there's going to be a pathway to the regional championships, which are going to be a very small number of select larger championships that we're going to run in partnership with some event organizers around the world who've really proven their chops and put on some amazing events over the last 12 to 24 months. And we're going to work with them to bring a consistent, cohesive sorcery experience. Again, deliver some awesome prizes to players and really give an opportunity for players who are interested in it to work through that store championship process to then potentially go to a regional championship and enjoy some competition against some players from further afield, but also just enjoy a celebration of all things sorcery. So it's not just about the gameplay, although, of course, that is something that will be celebrated through these events, but it's also about the community, making sure everybody who turns up to these events has an awesome time and feels rewarded and feels like it's been an opportunity for them to engage in everything that's great about sorcery, whether it's the art, the gameplay, or the community experience and the storytelling. And I think, one thing that we've spoken about previously, Drew, is that every time we have a set release, we've had a Thurian Legends release that gives a certain vibe and character to the game and the stories that come out of it. And I think with the next set as well, we're going to see that shift and change again. So this coming year in 2025 is going to be an opportunity for us to, I guess, enjoy the afterglow of that Arthurian Legends storytelling feel. And then as we move into the next set, that'll be an opportunity to have some more unique experiences as we move forward from there.
Well, that's a lot to unpack, Jesse. That's a lot of exciting things right there. As always, I love sitting down and getting to talk to you about everything you're working on and, just the stuff that we have going on together. It's really, really exciting. So, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I will talk to you later.
Thanks very much, Drew. It's good to chat. Have a great holiday season, and we'll see you all next year.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Ira. How are you?
Doing great. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with what's top of mind. You're the Codex Keeper, which, let's be honest, sounds amazing. But for those that don't know, can you share a little bit about your role and what it's like being a go-to resource for rulings and game mechanics?
Yeah, sure. So this is a new position that I think flows really naturally from the work that I had been doing before. And the idea is that as sorcery continues to grow, we really want to make sure that we're supporting the sort of competitive play space. And for that to happen, we really need a set of fair rules and even playing field so that if you're at home brewing your deck, you can know what to expect if you then travel to or just go to an event. So the idea of the Codex is that it is the most detailed version of the rules. We do not expect new players to need to use that or refer to it at all, but it will be there for the people who really want to know at the most granular level how all of the rules of the game work. That's what the Codex is, and that's what I'm working on.
That's awesome. Well, my next question would be, so you and I actually met for the first time at Gen Con this year, which when Chase and I delivered you the prize support for the tournaments that you were running there, Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Gen Con and maybe share some of your favorite moments?
Yeah, when you dropped those off to me, like the boxes were stacked above my head. When you
I
dropped
hope we have a photo of that
I
somewhere. I'd
think
love
we
to
did.
share
I
that.
think we did get a photo. Yeah. Gen Con is amazing. It's so intense. It's so many people from all over the country, all over the world coming in to enjoy gaming and to get to celebrate sorcery with those events. We had an incredible team of volunteers who did a bunch of learn to play events and the tournament, all the judges, and then of course all the players that showed up. So it was really a special event. I'm looking forward to making it even bigger next year. I don't know. One thing that stood out to me, this was actually Chase's idea after the previous year Gen Con, we sort of just had tournaments. And at the end of it, Chase said, what we really need is at the end of the tournaments, we need sort of a social time for people to play and trade and just hang out together. And we did that for the first time last summer. And it was so amazing. We finished the championship and then we immediately transitioned into this casual play and trade social time that involved a bunch of door raffles, door prizes, and we did some raffles, and it was just great energy, and that was really special to me because it represented the merging of the competitive play, but also still the community and the joy that people get of just being together and enjoying the game. So that was really a special moment for me.
That is so awesome. And to kind of talk about that, we all know that there's no better experience than playing sorcery in person, as you just mentioned. But you're also a huge part of an online league, which I think is about to finish its 6th season, if I remember that correctly. Can you tell us a little bit about the league?
Yeah, and I started it because I just wanted to play more sorcery, and it was like before alpha even. I don't remember. It was very early on, and we had the tabletop simulator, which people abbreviate as TTS. We had that mod where you could go and play, and the full card pool is available. And I think credit to the company to make that available. That wasn't my decision. That was actually Erik's decision. And it's been a great resource, I think, for the team and for the players to get to play because you can brew any deck you want and try it out. And then it sort of can guide your desires for collecting the paper cards as well. And the community there is great. It's totally free. You can sign up. Maybe we can include a link, to the sorcery league if you want, but if not, just message me on Discord. I'm happy to connect you to it. We had about 200 people sign up this most recent season, and there's no obligation to play. You can sort of sign up, and then if you have time to play, you can play, and if you don't have time, you don't have to play. So it's just a fun time. Brew some decks, have some fun. Check it out if you want.
That is awesome. Well, speaking about Gen Con and the online league, with a game that's as intricate as sorcery, was there a certain ruling from this year that really stood out to you, either from the online league or Gen Con?
Oh, interesting. There's so many rule questions that I get asked all the time. The one that's standing out to me most was actually a personal experience with the card Giant Shark and the card Flanking Maneuver. And what Flanking Maneuver does is that it lets you move a unit as a knight in chess, which is sort of because sorcery is played on a grid, you get to do card designs like that. And for anybody who doesn't know chess, it's 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square in a orthogonal direction to that, so like an L, sort of an L shape. And the thing about sorcery is that you also have these 2 layers. You have the subsurface and the surface. And because Flanking Maneuver is a teleportation effect that does not specify you have to stay within your own region, it actually lets you teleport from the subsurface to the surface or from the surface to the subsurface. So I literally jumped the shark from underwater to the surface to make an attack, and that was a memorable rule and moment.
That is awesome. Now, this interview would definitely not be complete without mentioning your games against Chase, which I do have the privilege of editing. So I always get excited when he tells me that you two are about to record. So can you give us any hints as to what videos might be coming early next year?
We have a lot of ideas. I don't want to promise something that doesn't end up materializing, but I will say I've been talking to him about wanting to do some puzzles, because I think I do some puzzle design. I'm for something other than sorcery, but I was thinking sorcery puzzles would be really cool, and it just sort of will require knowledge of the rules and also just knowledge of how the game works, and so we thought that might be fun. So I'm gonna pitch Chase on some puzzles, and we'll see how they come out. But that's my hope for what might be coming.
Wow, I hope to see that in the near future.
Well, you will get to see it first.
that is true. As always, Ira, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today about your role at Erik's Curiosa and some of your reflections from the past year. But before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to say to the community as we head into 2025?
Oh, I feel a lot of gratitude. I think it's a special group. I feel particularly grateful to all the volunteers who I've worked with, from the league, the judges, and everybody who volunteered at Gen Con, but also and all the people who donate to the league, because it's a free league, but then people donate a bunch of prizes, so there's still a bunch of prizes. And I think just the players who want to come and play, because it's fun to get to play together. So feeling a lot of gratitude, and looking forward to the next year.
Well, sadly, folks, we've got to wrap things up. So to help lead us out here, I'm here with Director of Operations, Simon Swan.
Hey, Chase, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy year for us, so Sorcery, isn't it?
It's pretty wild when you think about all the products we launched, all the accomplishments. It's kind of hard to imagine, and suddenly we're like spit out on the other side. I feel like we were just talking about like launching the Dust Store, and here we are a whole year later.
Yeah, managed to get that done. It's been very popular. We get a lot of emails from fans with ideas, the things they'd like to see featured in the Dust Store. And as many people know, we're doing more next year. So we've got a selection of cards, and we're probably thinking a bit more longer term as well. So continue to earn your Dust, redeem it from your booster boxes, and get playing Sorcery as well, because there'll be more opportunities to earn Dust.
We had a lot of different initiatives that we pushed through this year. Was there one that in particular you're most proud of?
probably growing the business really to the stage that it is today. It's one of those soft answers that people give, but it's very rewarding to build a business that gives people the ability to really explore the creative process to the degree that we can. I think we're on record for being a little bit more methodical. Some people might say slow than others, but when we release a set of cards, we want it to be absolutely right. Like, if we can just have an awesome game, that's good enough for us. And so having the infrastructure, the funding, and the popularity through our community to be able to do that is very rewarding. In addition to that, launching a retail product globally at the same time as attending a at scale event in Germany. Planning wise, it wasn't the wisest choice, but we kind of pulled it off, and it did an okay job. I know that some regions were a little bit lacking in terms of product availability, so sorry about that. But overall, I think given our scale, we've certainly exceeded Eric's expectations, and I think we've set ourselves up quite nicely for 2025.
I think one thing that will stay with me forever was the I already mentioned it earlier, but the hectic process for Gen Con when suddenly we had that booth unlocked for us. But I remember we got there, it's like our first booth we've done. We're getting all our promos out, etc. And we're like, okay, the doors open at 9. So we're going to get everything ready. We're good. And then it's like a half an hour early and people started queuing up. And we were like, what's going on here? And it's like, oh, there's a VIP early person pass. And we're like, there's a line starting to go around the corner. And I'm like, we haven't even started yet. And there's already a line. And, it was just nonstop. But I feel like that captured the energy of the whole year where, from the Courtesan Cup and Sorcery Con, right after all those qualifiers throughout, Ask and Ras, the events in Singapore, it was just nonstop community events. And man, I can't wait to see what this year coming forward brings now that we've laid a lot more groundwork.
I think so. Yeah, I want us to see more communities. I want us to travel more widely in support of communities in different countries for sure. One thing that always surprises me is we're in Dallas, we're in Vegas, and then we see the same person in Germany. I'm thinking to myself, you've come all this way. Like this is work, but it's more than that because we love what we do. But we travel 6,000 miles, and then someone just shows up and goes hi, and didn't even tell us. That's amazing. It really is. And I'm always kind of fascinated by how much people know about the game. They know about the company, and it's so rewarding. And I'm just delighted that our creative team have been able to create something that people love quite so much. That commitment is not lost. I'm on record for saying that we listen to all feedback, both positive and negative. And I think it's fair to say we probably get both in equal measure sometimes. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's part of building a business, is that you conquer those problems, you grow, you evolve. We're new to this. Like, we didn't anticipate having this level of success, but adding people to our team strategically in 2025 as we grow, being able to do more things, that's when we start really to gain traction. And we've seen what happens next with Sorcery. So obviously we're fairly optimistic about what 2025 holds.
Yeah, man, I think it's been really just I don't know, really impactful seeing Eric's vision continue to be translated and so well received. And I think maybe this idea that what's that phrase? You escape competition through authenticity, where Erik, one set of years, not what necessarily all our competition does. And, the way we approach art with the hand-painted art and allowing each artist to be authentically themselves. And even I think the way Erik empowers us as a team to just be ourselves and drill down on that component. It's just been really cool to see all of that be coming together. And then each community event that's been going around the world, they all have the same elements, right? They celebrate community, they celebrate the artists, they're there to have a good time. And yet there's that authentic, an event at Ask and Rask is going to be very different than the Las Vegas event versus the kind of kitchen table groups, meetups. And I don't know, there's something about that when things get so busy, there's social media going off Discord, but being able to soak that in and be look at this, look what these people are doing with Sorcery, look what the artists are doing in Sorcery. I don't know. I think that's
That's surprising
something.
to us. You know, like we see these things, we see these events, and we think, okay, they're doing an event, and then we dutifully watch the streams, not because we have to, because we want to, because we enjoy this
Yeah.
stuff. Like I even watch your gameplay videos and then put them on for the family, and I enjoy
Well,
those.
that's the secret. I got to watch all the people's gameplay videos as possible so I can improve my skills too.
Right,
So,
exactly. But one thing you mentioned is competition, and that's
yeah.
interesting because with the only thing we want to be competitive for is people's time.
Yeah.
And to make sure that time's well rewarded, because there's so many options out there, from video games to trading card games to just spending time with family. We want to make sure we balance that really well. So when you interact with Sorcery, when you play Sorcery, it feels great. We want people to be advocates of their hobby time, so they can share that with others and people can enjoy it too. I feel that overall we've done a good job at that, but we've got so much space to grow. You know, we're only 2 sets in, and we have plans for, I think, 4 or 5 sets beyond that. So yeah, we've got a long way to go yet.
Well, and we've got the Dragon Lord coming up, right?
We have Mr. Ed Beard Jr. We're still working on that. We're kind of refining some of the cards at the last minute. We showcased, I think, a few at SorceryCon in November. But you know, we're pretty fastidious about that, and we kind of noticed a couple of things we want to make sure we tune accordingly. We're working on the commercial rollout. How will people get hold of that product? How will they collect it? How will they play with it? And also the launch events as well in support of that. So you know, again, we're kind of trying to scale it out accordingly. I think that we'd love to do something with Ed as one example, maybe a showcase event with him. So hopefully he can bring the
Can you
Dragon
imagine
Lord
how
band.
fun that would be?
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't had a chance to interact with Ed in person, just hanging out at SorceryCon briefly is electric. So I can't imagine a sorcery event that was debuting the Dragon Lord there or something, or getting to be in the same room with him and the cards. That would be wild.
It's great because I know that he has a Kickstarter next year as well. Where he's showcasing a lot of the thought that went into this. People have to understand this is I think it's 25 years of his own work behind the scenes, which is manifest in the Dragon Lord set within Sorcery. So there's a lot behind the scenes here as well, and I really hope people appreciate the flavor and the thought that went into it. And that's fundamentally Sorcery. This is really what the experience we want to be. It's not good enough just to make a card. It needs to be there for a reason, and people need to feel something when they interact with it.
I feel like that was maybe the one thing on this video is having the design team design a card on the spot. And it's it's a lot more involved.
Yeah, simplify the process. Well, why don't they just spend 8 hours and do that for the whole set? It seems
Oh
easy.
my gosh.
A bit more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to be that guy because the Dragon Lord's not even here yet. But what
What's
comes next after that?
Well, a lot of people have been speculating, because I think it's fair to say that our artists like to talk about what they've been doing. And, we've been knocking a few names around as to potentially which direction we go in next. And we had a selection of names. But the one name which was foundational was the code name for the set, which was Gothic. And I'm happy to announce that will be the next set's name. So the next set will be called Gothic. It's stuck with us. We can't shake it. We have conversations, and it's so embedded in what we do. And I think it really talks a lot to the theme. The themes are probably a little bit wider, as with Sorcery, Arthurian legends, and the beta, than that may dictate. But I think people can see what we're pivoting to. It's an at-scale set, which will be supported by precons, and we know people are going to love it. After this, myself and Chase are probably going to have another quick game, so we just can't leave it alone.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so it's going to be really fantastic. The artists have done some amazing work. The thematic aspect of it is great. The gameplay is amazing, and so Gothic folks, that's going to be the set after Dragon Lord. We're not going to put any dates out there. We're going to get it right. We're going to make sure this feels right, and it's an amazing expansion. But when people experience it for the first time, I'm sure they're going to be delighted.
And Erik has shared in an interview that there are precons, and oh my gosh, are they fun? So I don't want to set expectations too high, but
who won the last game between us?
All right. Hold on a second. We got to record this after we play tonight. But yeah, they're a blast. So buckle up, everybody.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have to sign off, Chase, but people always want a little bit more, don't they?
I don't know. Do we? Maybe as a thank you, we could do a little something.
It is the holidays, folks. So here we go. Here's your first glance at Gothic.